Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on what side of the pond you're on, and welcome to an exciting edition of Across the Pitch. My name is Phil Kennedy, and I'm here with my co-host, Tony Robinson, where today we are hoping that Accrington Stanley's result this week is a little bit better than last week, which we're going to get to shortly. Before we jump into the match, which we're going to do kind of right away here, first and foremost, Tony, you still are over in England. Is tomorrow going to be your last match at the WAM?
Hi, Phil. Yes, on both accounts. Have fly back to Canada midweek and last match tomorrow. So I'm hoping it's going to be a better performance and better result come 5 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Absolutely. And, as far as things are concerned, there's some things where sometimes matches don't necessarily reflect in the stats, but last week's match, I mean, the stats pretty much tell the whole story. Now, certainly you were there, Tony, and there's some things that I want you to expand on. But, when you're at home, you're playing the last place team in the table, you're favored to win the match. You end up losing 0-1. You get shut out on your home turf. The only goal allowed is one that you put in yourself. It's an own goal. And then, you're not really even making much attack. I see that we were 2 out of 12 shots, which is right around that 15% target rate that we mentioned where you don't want to be at. You only even they didn't even get to the 4.5 corners. They only managed 4 corners. So, Tony, the first thing I want to ask you about is since you were there in person, tell us about how did that own goal come to be?
Well, there's really not a lot of positives as far as I could see, Phil. And generally I'm one that tries to look at the glass more than half full and try and find something positive out of the match. But and normally I try and do a bit of a review on the Sunday, but just the performance was not good at all. In fact, if anything, it seemed to be the play of the team, and it just seemed to take a step backwards and not show any improvement, which is what you want, obviously, as the season goes on. I think the expectations were high playing Newport, and that's another reason why I think it hurts, and it's disappointing, is that you're going in with an opportunity to put a bit of distance between you and the bottom, and you don't take advantage of it, and the goals that they're not scoring is obviously a grave concern. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure by what we saw on the weekend how they're going to solve it, because they're creating some chances, but they're just not finished. They're just not clinical within that 18-yard box, Phil, and it is somewhat concerning at this point.
Yeah, I mean, not to dwell on the negative, this is going to be my last kind of negative comment. We're definitely fans of John Doolan, and we want to see John Doolan be successful in Accrington. But one thing that I read online was, I don't know how accurate this was or if this was just kind of social media hearsay, but I read something along the lines that I guess after the match, there was a fan that mentioned to Dave Burgess, is this kind of the end of John Doolan? And I think Dave Burgess maybe said something along the lines of, well, who else are we going to bring in? Now, the first thing is, that doesn't really sound like a rousing endorsement if that's what he actually said. And I also think that that's definitely a concerning attitude for the managing director to have. So, first and foremost, Tony, do you think that that's something that actually did happen? And if so, what are your feelings about that?
Well, I never witnessed anything, but you could tell there was a sense of discontentment amongst the fans, and where David Burgess and the ownership management team stand is right next to where the fans are, so it's quite possible that people did have words. I basically left straight after the match and didn't get a chance to speak to anybody because there was nothing really positive to say to anybody at the club. And I'm quite sure that some conversations have been held with John, and because they were held after the Cheltenham match, and he responded with 2 wins, and so I'm sure that he's still going to be there, but the leash might be a little bit shorter. Um, I don't like you say, like if David Burgess should probably not have said what he did, but if he did say it, there's probably some truth to it because who are you going to bring in? On a salary that Stanley can afford to pay. While
That's what we've said in not so many words when it came down to the whole John Coleman situation a few years ago was kind of who else are we going to bring in? And, obviously, Doolan was the obvious answer. And, I'm not saying that John Doolan's done a bad job given what he's had to work with, because I mean, certainly, we all know the challenges of, being Accrington Stanley's manager is not being, Barcelona's manager, if you will. But I mean, at the same time, when you're losing home matches to the bottom team in the table, you're not really even threatening to score. I mean, maybe a coaching change is necessary, but let's kind of flip the switch on that because first. I just want to touch real quick on a couple of gambling things. The one thing that I did actually come through on was the one thing I kind of didn't want to come through on after the way the game started playing out, and that was the under 1.5 goals. And Tony, I do remember kind of mentioning to you that I thought it was going to be a 1-0 game one way or the other, and it did go that way. And unfortunately, it went the wrong way. But kind of moving on from that, my other kind of big pick last week, it had to do with the team that was at the top of the table in terms of Walsall, and I was, of course, all over Walsall last week because here I am. I'm like, okay, well, you got Walsall at the top of the table. They're playing Crawley Town, who's there at the bottom of the table, and it just seemed like that was going to be an easy win for Walsall. They didn't end up pulling it off. That game ended up in tie. And, certainly I think if you look back at the history of things, the game against Newport County last week where, I guess you're expected to win, if you will, that's maybe the kind of game that Stanley's traditionally lost. On the other hand, this week, you're at home. You've got Swindon Town who's coming in. They're second at the table. Maybe they kind of take Stanley a little bit too lightly. And maybe this is kind of the game that Stanley has tended to win over the years, or maybe you at least get a draw out of it. I think that anybody would be happy with 1 point against Swindon Town tomorrow. Given the respective spots of the table, I know maybe that's not a lot to grasp at, but I mean certainly last week's results were proof of why once you get into League One and League Two, you're talking about leagues that are much more competitive top to bottom than you are with maybe the Premier League, where, a first place team can draw with a 22nd place team kind of thing. So, Tony, over to you, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, it's I think I don't think it's going to be a draw because Swindon's record so far is they haven't had a
Free of
draw.
draws.
Sorry?
Their record is free of draws.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
So I guess if it's going to be a draw, it'd have to be a 0-0 draw because as I said, Stanley haven't been scoring, but it seems to be that when you expect them to win, they underperform, and when the pressure's not on them, they seem to overachieve. So,
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what I think we're
yeah,
on the same page with. And
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Swindon's got 22 goals for in 11 matches played. So I think 0-0 is going to be a tough cookie to come by. But, maybe like a 2-2 or, a 3-2 Stanley just to really screw up the table. I mean, it's not out of the question.
Well, no, the law of averages says they're going to score at some point. And and I said while I was at the match, I think the only way that I could see Stanley scoring that match was if they were going to get a penalty. But to do that, they've got to get into the box more. It seems like when we didn't put a lot of pressure on the back, 4 or 5 players at Newport, and we seemed to
How
play
big a
off
deal
them.
was it that Seamus Keneally didn't play?
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure the reason why, to be honest with you, but I just thought the front grouping didn't put the pressure on the back line of Newport. In fact, at one point, I made a comment that one of Stanley's players seemed to be just covering grass because he wasn't in a position to. Of putting pressure on, and maybe that's what John Doolan wants. He wants them to play off them and have them in possession at the back. But by doing that, you allow the team to develop and find openings, which Newport seemed to do. Newport's not a good team, but on the day they were better than Stanley. That's of a concern. I guess
Yeah.
the positive is that there's Stanley still in 20th by goal difference. So, and I think again, when you look at the stats, Phil, defensively, as far as the team performance is concerned, the best players are in that back line, and the 2 players on Stanley that had above a seven rating was Pye. Played on the wingback position, and then you had Ben Ward, who played an outstanding game. Now there's a chance that Rawson may be back and Matthews will be back. So I think if you see those players, you might see them go back to a 3 at the back, and then with the wingbacks and 2 up front. But there really wasn't a lot of pressure, and I'm sort of unfortunately. For my opinion, Josh Woods didn't have a good performance. Sinclair did. I thought he played well, although his rating doesn't indicate that. And Isaac Keith was another threat, but I don't think they utilize him enough. And they got to get him wide on that wing, and they got to get the ball to him. And if they're going to keep it deep, kick it deep from the goalkeeper, they first of all, he's got to keep it in play, and second, he's got to find the guys on the wing, because I think the threats that Stanley can put on Swindon is going to have to come from the wide areas. But the team ranking again was an average rating of 6.6, and now Newport wasn't a lot better, but they were above average. They were above average at 7.1. And you can't let teams come in and dominate you like that on your home ground, Phil. It's just not on. And they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players over a 7-point rating, and Stanley just had the 2. So I mean that explains why they're not winning. You can't constantly underperform based on your stats and expect to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've really hit the nail on the head, Tony, with a lot of different things there, and I really think that just perhaps having some players return to health is really going to be our biggest hope here. Outside of just hoping that maybe kind of history does repeat itself in terms of Stanley stepping up against a team that is ahead of them in the table, pulling off a surprise. Certainly after last week's performance, it's kind of hard to recommend putting money on Stanley at all. But at the same time, the price right now of the Accrington Stanley money line is plus 295. So that means if you're betting 10 quid, that's 10 quid to win 29.50. That's almost 3-to-1 odds that you're getting on a home team. I'm not sure that's not worth laying some quid on just because you're getting such big odds on a home team there. But I mean, like I said, I mean the hardest part is going to be the like we said, Swindon's got 22 goals in 11 matches played, whereas Stanley. At this point, they have 7 goals scored in 11 matches played. So you almost have to bank that Swindon is going to get 2 goals. Is Stanley going to have 3 goals in him? That's your question. Do you think Stanley can possibly score 3 goals, or is that just more than they could shoot? I mean, last week they didn't even have 3 shots on target.
No, and we talked about that last week with that match, and we said that the key is whoever gets the first goal is likely going to have come away with the 3 points, and that definitely was the case. And to think that Stanley is going to score 2 to 3 goals, I think is wishful thinking. Although I'm not sure if Sean Wally will start. It's probably unlikely. But I anticipate he could be on the bench because he's been back training this week.
I was going to ask, what's the injury situation with Wally? Because I mean, honestly, I feel like our only choice, or I mean, our only real hope of getting any kind of offense going is having him return.
Well, him and Tyler Walton. Now, Tyler Walton started running, but he's not in full training yet. Rawson and Freddie Sass are back full training. So there's a chance that they could start tomorrow. And Freddie Sass is really he's a decent player, and his threat. He has the threat of a long throw-in, so that would add something to the team. So we could see a different lineup tomorrow, and it was nice to see O'Brien come back. Last week he come on in the second half, and for somebody who hadn't played in probably almost a year, he looked decent, and he's a threat going overlapping and on the wing, and he can get the ball into the box. So is he going to play the wing back position, and you're going to have a back three of Matthews, Ross, and and Ward and Sass on the other wing back. That's a possibility. I think we'll know more about it obviously an hour before kickoff, but I think you could see some changes. It's just that I don't think you'll see a lot of changes up front, unfortunately, and that's where we need we need the striking power, and Paddy Madden is just not fitting in at the moment, and not getting a lot of the ball. So if your striker is not getting the ball, that's not a good sign. And I think unfortunately Josh Wood's touch betrayed him a couple of times. Sometimes he'll look really, really good, and then sometimes he'll sort of look a bit average. And I wouldn't say that it was one of his best performances, although he's rated higher than some of the other players. And from my point of view, I think he needs to up his game, and his conversion rate in front of the net, his strike rate, games played for goals scored, is not very impressive. So where the goals are going to come from is a big question, and I don't know if John Doolan has the answer, but fingers crossed that he does, and tomorrow they prove us all wrong, and then come Sunday morning things are a bit rosy again.
Yeah, I think that you've hit the nail on the head with just about every situation, and I think that really, outside of taking that chance on the Stanley money line, it really makes betting just about anything else in this match kind of dicey. Like I look at the over 2.5 goals, and I'm thinking, okay, well, you can count on Swindon to get 2 goals. Can you count on Stanley to get any? And at a price of minus 118, where you're betting 10 quid to win about 8 quid, I mean, it's not a real good price. It's kind of dicey there. If you're betting the Swindon money line, you're betting like 10 quid to win 9 quid. So I mean, you're not even getting even money. The draw at plus 250, I don't really like that, because like we said, Swindon, they haven't drawn all year. I don't really see this game drawing. I mean, unless you're just super confident that Swindon is going to come and wipe Stanley out, and that's just not a bet that I want to make. Then there's not a lot to like in this game, and I mean, honestly, this is a really tough week overall, looking league wide, just because a lot of good teams are at home, so you're not getting real good odds, or there's not a whole lot of upset chances out there. One thing that I did want to kind of touch on here last week was my bet of Harrogate versus Fleetwood Town. Now that brings me to something I want to talk about, which is called your cash out button. And if you're betting online with an app, you're usually going to have what's called a cash out button, and that basically gives you a chance to cash out the bet before it ends for a percentage of the money back. Don't be afraid of your cash out button is the message that I wanted to give here, because with the Fleetwood and Harrogate game, like I mentioned, last week I was kind of onto it, and it was going to be a back and forth game, multiple ties, multiple lead changes, and I had $10 in on that to win 35, so 45 total with my 10 back. In about the 71st minute, Harrogate actually did hold a 1-goal lead. I think it was 2-1 at that point in favor of Harrogate. At that point, I could have cashed out for $25.40, which would have been a $15 profit. I should have done that. I thought about doing it, didn't. Decided that I wanted to win that other $16. Unfortunately, Fleetwood not only scored 1 but 2 goals, and ended up with 0 on that. So my kind of advice to you is, especially if you're betting underdogs, and you've got, maybe if you got a 2 or 3 goal lead, you're going to want to hang on to that. It's a little dicey. Maybe it's a 1 goal lead, but they're offering you decent payback. Don't be afraid to hit that cash out button, because I tell you, I've almost never regretted hitting it. And there's plenty of times I've regretted not hitting it. And
Yeah.
actually, you know what I'm talking about, Tony.
Yeah, and I think come Saturday, there's two interesting fixtures involving all bottom four teams, with Shrewsbury hosting Crawley and Newport at home to Cheltenham. So with results coming out of those two fixtures, there's a good chance that Stanley will drop in the standings if they don't get a result. And it's
Right, because
possible.
somebody's going to get points in this game.
Yeah, even if they both draw, they're going to Stanley's going to drop. And I think if and we always hope for a win, obviously get some points. But if there is a Stanley loss, we hope it's doesn't affect the goal difference drastically, because right now we're in 20th based on the goal difference. So that's getting important at this point. But as I say, something's going to give at the bottom of the table come Saturday at 5 o'clock UK time.
And one kind of underdog bet that I keep looking at and coming back to is the Chesterfield and Fleetwood Town game. We all know that the Fleetwood won and scored the 3 goals at home against Harrogate. They are going on the road to 6th place Chesterfield. But I mean, 6th place Chesterfield is only 3 points better in the table than 12th place Fleetwood. So, I mean, they're only 3 points apart. And right now on Fleetwood, you can get plus 335, which on a 10 quid bet, that's going to pay you back 33 50. So you would get 43.50 back, including your 10 on a 10 quid bet. That's definitely the one that you want to put 10 quid on, then keep an eye. And then if you see that Fleetwood's ahead 1 goal 70 minutes in, go ahead and cash that one out. So that's kind of my upset pick of the week. I'm going to go with Fleetwood over Chesterfield at plus 335.
Well, as you mentioned, it's tight from 12th all the way up to the 4th place team. Just 3 points separate those teams. So again, it's the table is starting to sort of be crowded at the top, but they're starting to see a bit of space at the bottom with sort of Tranmere. Their record at the moment, they haven't won in 6, so. It's possible that Tranmere is in the mix at the bottom, but you're talking about 6 teams that look like they could be away from the rest of the teams. So it's I thought last week was a must win. I can't say it's a must win tomorrow, because I just that's expecting the win, and
yeah, I think that if we get 1 point out of it, that's as good as a win against a second place team.
Yeah, I'd take a draw now, Phil, if that was to be the case. I mean, I'd love to see a 2-1 win, but the stats don't indicate that. But stats can be proven wrong, and times that they are, and hopefully this is one of the times that Stanley proves everybody wrong, because they have it in them. It's just that it didn't come out last week, and I just thought that I had a sense that they felt they were going to score and not concede, but they've got to as the longer the match went, the more the feeling you had that they weren't going to score. And one thing I did notice, and there was a time, I think around the 75th minute, when there was a time that they had 2 or 3 subs waiting to come on, and there was a stoppage in play, and he didn't make the change. and the next stoppage in play was 5 minutes later. So that to me is you've got to get these players on. They're coming on at the 80-minute mark instead of 75 minutes. Not only are they cooling down on the sideline, it's less time for them to make an impact. So I think they've got to
Yeah,
be.
get your impact players on, and those are
Yeah,
the
you got
kind of
to.
little coaching things that make a big difference.
Yeah, you've got to get this. You've got to take the opportunity because I mean, once that when there was a break in play, Newport made their subs at the 75-minute mark, so there was an opportunity for Stanley to do it, and they didn't, and then that wasted another 5 minutes, and that you could sense the crowd was a bit restless because they wanted the subs to go on. So I think the there's got to be improvement on not only on the product on the pitch, but there's got to be improvement in the decision making process on the sidelines.
I think that at the end of the day, what we need to see is Stanley be able to find a way to make that final pass in the final third to be able to get that shooting percentage up. Because as we keep talking about, they were 2 of 12 last week. I think they were like 4 out of 20 the week before. They keep being right around 15%. Like we had talked about in the past, 40% really seems to be a key number that you want to be at, that's showing that you're making quality passes, you're getting quality shots. Otherwise, I mean, I think that the team, just needs to find some confidence, some leadership, and get healthy.
Well, I think if the performance is there and they increase the shots on net and they play well and they just get beat by a better team, then you accept that and move on. But there has to be signs of improvement even in a loss. And as I say, fingers crossed, and hopefully they'll come out with a better performance and win. But it's how you perform on the pitch. If you do lose, you've got to give the fans some confidence that this team's going to turn things around, or before you know it, they'll be in the bottom two, and it's when you drop in the two, it's a lot harder to get out, especially if you get towards Christmas time and you're still in that position. So, and I think
relegation isn't an option.
no, but I think as far as the management team, like if John, like the point is if who do you replace John with, and would they get rid of John, keep Jed? There's all those conversations that are going to be going on. But I think he's got until Christmas to prove himself.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, and turn it around. And let's say I'll go tomorrow. I'll go and enjoy my last match at the Wham, cheer the lads on, and hope for a win. And fingers crossed we get it.
Well, I hope that tomorrow's match is more enjoyable for you than the last one. Before we wrap up, just a couple of quick notes. Last week, I did make a couple of Premier League picks. Premier League was on a break last week, so those picks are actually for this week's game. So just to run over those again, I have the Bournemouth Cherries money line tomorrow, and Victor Gyökeres for Arsenal to have 2 or more goals tomorrow. I talked about that on the last episode. If you want to check that out. Otherwise, I'm about to go watch the Tractor Boys in Middlesbrough.
I'll enjoy, and I'm looking forward to the match tomorrow, and a better performance, and come away with 3 points, and that'll make the flight back to Canada that much more enjoyable, and we'll go from there, Phil. It's just let's get behind the lads of Clinton, and we're outstanding on the Saturday with their cheering and the noise. They didn't give up. So, and they're gonna be needed again this weekend to suck that ball into the net for Stanley. So fingers crossed, and let's hope for a good one, Phil. So nice talking to you again, Phil.
As always, Tony, and enjoy the match tomorrow. Have a safe flight back to Canada. And on 3, 1, 2, 3. On Stanley on.
Cheers,
Cheers,
Phil.
Tony. Have a great one.